Hey there, it's that coding guy here. Today we're going to talk about arithmetic and operators in Java. If you are new to the language or new to programming and you haven't checked out the previous videos in this beginner's course, I would recommend that you go check those out first, and that'll set you up for success here. So to help us illustrate these things, I'm kind of thinking of a scenario where I walk into a store and I purchase a new TV and a new sound bar to go with that TV and make it sound really good. So I have declared three variables here. They're all floats. Remember, that's one of our primitive data types in Java. We have given them names that are very descriptive, and we're using camel casing. That means the first letter of the variable is lowercase, and then all of the next words have the first letter capitalized. And these are best practices for naming conventions in Java. Other languages will differ. And see, we've got the F after these guys, and that tells Java that this value is a float. Now, if I didn't have that, I'd get a red squiggle here saying, hey, this variable was declared as a float. But what you provided me on the other side of that equal sign is a double value. So we include the F there to make that a float. Now, if we had just wanted to make this a double instead of a float, that would be fine. But I just wanted to have these as floats to demonstrate. And what I'll say too is if you're ever dealing with currency, there are better data types to use that are more advanced, but for our purposes here today, this is going to do just fine. So, if we want to talk about operators in Java, what's an operator? I like to think about operators as verbs. So, operators are telling Java that we want to do something, and we're already using one. We're already using the assignment operator, which is a single equal sign. And if you remember from the declaration variables video there, we assign the value on the right of the equal sign to the variable name on the left. And this is just a label or a name now for this value. All right, so we've got the sales tax rate at 7% there. We've got TV price, $332.29. And we've got soundbar price at $109.99. All right. So if we wanted to add these three, or add the TV price and the soundbar price together to get our subtotal, what we could do is set up a new variable. I'm going to declare a new float, and we'll call it subtotal. And we're going to set that equal to the TV price. And you see, I just typed TV. I've got IntelliSense helping me out from Intellij. And say, hey, did you mean TV price? Yeah, I did. And because I'm lazy, efficient, I'm going to just hit Enter or Tab to autocomplete here. Big efficiency savings there. And then we can use one of our arithmetic operators, the plus sign for addition. And then we're going to add the soundbar price. Now you'll notice that TV price is now lit up kind of like in a brighter white color here. And these other guys are still kind of subdued and gray. And that's because I actually just used TV price in this statement. And so these other two variables right now are unused. So you'll see that once I accept this and use soundbar price, that one's going to light up. And so that's a subtle clue to help us as developers realize when maybe we're not using something yet. We've created something and we haven't put it to use, which is generally something to look at. And if you'll remember from the previous video there, we complete our thought in Java with a semicolon. All right, that's how we complete our statement and tell Java, all right, we're done with that thought. So we'll do that there, and I'll just write a comment here to show you the other arithmetic operators we've got. We've got plus, We've got the dash for minus, we've got the asterisk for multiplication, and the / for division. So these collectively are arithmetic operators. There are other operators out there, and there are other arithmetic operators out there too, but this will do us for right now. All right, and remember, these are comments. These are code comments, and we can start those off with a double slash. Single slash is not going to get you there, so you want to make sure you're using 2. And remember, again, these guys do not get compiled or taken into account. They're just merely comments for us to read and other developers in the future too. So cool, we've got our subtotal there. And so we have declared this variable and we have initialized it to the expression TV price and soundbar price. There's another term that gets used in mathematics and is also a thing here in Java. This is a statement, but it's a special type of statement called an expression. Particularly the right side of this equal sign is an expression. And so, again, remember we said that, in a sense, operators are verbs and tell Java what to do. So when we set the value of subtotal, it's going to be equal to TV price plus the soundbar price. It's equal to the result of this expression, if that makes sense. So this gives us the chance to talk about order of operations, which are going to come in handy when we're thinking about arithmetic operators in Java. And I don't know if you've ever encountered PEMDAS before. Perhaps you've used the mnemonic, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But this basically specifies the order of operations for our mathematical operations here. So parentheses get evaluated first, exponents get evaluated next, and so on. And if we ever needed to work with our expressions and specify what should happen first, we could always surround these guys with parentheses. And of course, it's meaningless right here, but you can see, maybe we'll get into that a little later. So those guys will be useful there. All right, so let's go ahead and calculate our sales tax. So I'll declare a new variable here, and we'll call the tax equal to the subtotal times the, what do we got up here? Sales tax rate. So I can also copy and paste. Oops. If I would stop double clicking, that would be great. So our tax then is going to be equal to the subtotal times the sales tax rate. That's 7% there. And so we could start printing these out to the console. And if you remember our SOUT there, that system out.println, our little macro helps us out. We could print out the subtotal. And so this would be the subtotal. And then we could print out our tax amount. All right. And if we run that guy there, see that the first one, our subtotal is $442.28, and our tax amount is $30.95 and a little more. So there are several ways to set the precision of our variables, and if you want to hang out to the end of the video, I'll talk about that there. But for now, we're going to keep cruising. Now I want to add these together. So I could go ahead and set a new variable. Float total is equal to the subtotal plus the tax, and we could sout the total. And actually, I think total price is even better, an even better variable name. So rather than do total price here, and then I have to come down and change this guy, I'll show you the best way. And that is to right click. You want to refactor, rename. Okay. And now a little box is asking me, hey, what do you want to rename this thing to? So using my arrow keys, putting my cursor over to the end here. And as I type, you'll see the one down below is changing as well. And now I can hit enter. And no matter how many times I had used that throughout this file, they all would have been changed at the same time. That's the best. And there are other ways to do that refactor rename. You can see that over here. The Shift plus F6 is a shortcut to do the same thing. So if I had held Shift on while my cursor was on that guy, I hit F6, I get into the refactor rename thing there. These shortcuts can be helpful. Don't worry about remembering them all right away. You'll accumulate them over time as you go. And that's good stuff there. So so we did do that, right? We printed that out and we didn't run this guy yet. I could just do it from here now that I've got that tray open and see we get our subtotal or our total price here now. And but what we could have done rather than making a variable and printing this out, what we could have done is just print out the results of this expression, right? We talked about this being an expression. Well, we could just print that out, and if we don't need to use total price anywhere else in our program, like we can just get rid of that guy now. And if we rerun this, the results should not have changed, right? So we still get the same thing. So here's our total price. So, similarly, we could use division and addition and subtraction, exponents, and things like that for arithmetic and operators. And actually, we could have done all of this in one thing too. Like, if we wanted to take our subtotal and if we hadn't figured our tax out, oops, I forgot to make that a big T. I didn't know what I was talking about. If we wanted to print out the subtotal plus the result of the sales tax rate times subtotal, and then so we're using those parentheses here, right, to specify the order of operations. We're saying, hey, we want this to get done first, and then we'll add that to this guy. Okay. And it can be confusing here with your parentheses when you're starting to work with multiple parentheses like that. You'll see that when I put my cursor over this guy, I can see this guy lights up in yellow, and so does this guy. And that's because these are related, right? We're opening one parenthesis over here, and at the end of this statement, we've got the other parenthesis there, and this parenthesis goes with the parenthesis over here. So a little confusing at first. Get rid of this extra space there. We don't really need that. And if I run this, we should get the same thing, right? This is the same as this. So we didn't need to make all the variables here, but it's good practice, and it's good to think about these things in steps as you go, using comments to help yourself out. So, cool. Hopefully you've learned some on arithmetic and operators. And then I promised the special at the end would be how to trim these out. So if you're interested in that, what I did was go and type Java float precision 2 digits into Google. Okay. And the first result here is a Stack Overflow thread. And man, this place is a developer's best friend, especially if you're learning development. And we've got quite a lot of things going on screen here. But if you're not familiar with Stack Overflow, the first thing you see up top is someone out there asked a question. And you'll see that there's 18 answers. This is the question. And then all of the answers are down here below. Now, I did take a scroll through these earlier, and I saw a bunch of answers that use decimal format, and I'm like, well, that's a little complicated. We haven't really talked about too much there. We've got string formatting. We didn't really talk about that too much there either, but way down here, I'm like, well, while this does use math.round, and we haven't really talked about that, most of this is just arithmetic that we just kind of talked about, and I really like that. So I'm going to copy this guy and use that. So maybe I'll come down here and make a comment, precision total. And I'm just going to paste that code in here. All right, math.round, old variable times 100. And so if we do system out, and we'll move this guy inside the parentheses of the system out. And the old variable here, what we really want to get the precision of is the total price. Now, unfortunately, I took that variable out, so let's redeclare that real quick, because that's going to be easier to reason about. So we'll say float total price is equal to, that's equal to this guy, with the paren there. Okay. So what we want to set the position of is the total price. So we're going to change the old variable to total price. Looks like we've got an extra semicolon inside our parentheses here, so we'll get rid of that. And now, if we do this guy, we can see that it's trimming that up. It's rounding it up. 96 rounds up to 24, and that cuts off all the other digits there. But as you can see, when we scrolled through that, there's like definitely other ways to do that. What is math.round? Well, once we get into classes and functions, we'll learn more about that. But for now, just take our word for it that this gets us what we want, right? Or we don't have to understand exactly how that worked in order to use the code, which is pretty cool. As I like to say, you don't have to know how the car works in its entirety to drive it to the store and get some groceries. All right, well, that is arithmetic and operators. Hope that helps. Cheers.